This weekend, we were in Baltimore, Maryland for the Charm City Cross UCI races. Here's how it played out. Typically on a 2-day UCI weekend, they'll try to change the course from day 1 to day 2. And the only changes they made on the course for day 2 were between pit 1 and pit 2. So the whole middle part of the course, basically. And what they had us do is basically do this whole section backwards, which really only made 2 big adjustments. The first big change was that tricky off-camber from day 1 was even harder to ride on day 2 because of the super steep incline right before you got to the off-camber. Not to mention that you're already fatigued after that long gradual climb to even get to that part of the course. However, the spectators in this part of the course definitely provided some extra motivation as they were on another level. One spectator at this part of the course had yelled, "Oh yeah," right when I rode to the top of the really steep part. However, I had to unclip at the top because I missed the part of the trail that I was aiming for, and he quickly said, "Oh no," which I thought was pretty funny, and while I was too tired to laugh out loud, I did make a little mental chuckle. The second big change on day 2 was around the barriers. On day 1, you hit the barriers and then did these few tight turns. On day 2, you did the few tight turns and then hit the barriers, and then there was a really long straightaway. So on day 2, it was definitely more advantageous to hop the barriers because then you could really hit it on that long straightaway afterwards. Fortunately, not that many people were even hopping to begin with, but those who were gaining a lot of time. And then everything between pit 2 and pit 1, which included the end of the lap, the finishing line, and the start of the lap, was exactly the same from day 1. I wasn't feeling too bad for day 2, besides a little bit of soreness in my hip from smacking it on that metal bar. However, I wasn't feeling sick like the last 2 weeks, and so I thought it was a pretty good positive, and I was optimistic that I would maybe be able to crack that top 10 and get a few more UCI points. Somehow I had ended up getting called up number 17 instead of number 10, which was an error because I shouldn't have lost any UCI points from day 1 to day 2, meaning I should have had the same call-up position. So once again, I was demoted to the 3rd row, which did have a pretty strong effect on the first lap of my race. Since UCI points are not updated until after each weekend's races, this means that your points will remain stagnant until the next weekend's races. This explains why Christopher Blevins did not get a better call-up on day 2 after finishing 4th place. Pro tip: don't let these kinds of things totally derail your race. If you can't control the situation, then just embrace it, adapt, and move forward. I couldn't change the fact that I was on the 3rd row. So I just put my head down and didn't skip a beat and was determined to have a good start. And I like to chase, so whatever. After the hole shot, I was sitting about 20th place, which is definitely further back than I would have liked to have been. And there were a lot of riders ahead of me that I didn't want to be behind. But after 2 or 3 laps, I ended up in a group of 4 other riders with Caleb Schwartz and Tobin Ortenblad, and I ended up attacking from this group on one of the inclines and got a gap and basically sat in 12th place for the entire race. Ben Frederick was sitting in 11th place, only a handful of seconds in front of me for basically the entire race. At one point, Michael Vandenham, who happened to snap his chain that day, ended up catching me, and we rode together for about 1 or 2 laps until he had more chain issues and had to pit again because his shifting was off. So I was forced to continue the chase on my own. However, Ben held me off and I wasn't able to catch him before the finish and rolled it in for, once again, 12th place. Overall, it wasn't a bad day of racing. I definitely wasn't as sloppy as day one. However, I didn't get any more UCI points, so technically mission failed. But I do consider the weekend overall a success because I did solidify my spot on that World Cup roster. Number one, sloppy racing is not fast. On day one, I made a lot of mistakes and I made a few bad decisions. And while I never actually crashed or hit the ground, I did end up breaking a stake with my foot, running into a metal pole with my hip, and at one part of the course, I dropped in way too early before even getting to the turn and had to bust through the tape in 2 different sections to get back on the course. I was pretty embarrassed about this, and Brandon was right behind me and he didn't say anything, so whatever. Because technically I took a shortcut, which maybe I could have been DQ'd for, I don't know. But whatever, that was some sloppy racing, and when you race like that and make a bunch of mistakes, it's hard to stay focused and keep moving forward. There's actually a psychological phenomenon behind this called the success effect. It is based off of the notion that success breeds more success. And it's based off of the fact that when you're winning or doing well, you'll continue in that upward trajectory. Matt Fitzgerald defines it like this: experiencing success in the performance of a given task enhances subsequent performance in that same task by increasing self-efficacy or perceived competence. He goes on to write that proof that believing one is good at something can elevate performance independently of actually being good at it. Number two, have B priority races. I knew going into Charm City after having a 2-week decline in fitness that I wasn't about to have any stellar performances. However, I didn't put much pressure on myself, and so I didn't leave this weekend bummed or disappointed or frustrated. Not every weekend can be an A priority race. This will definitely lead to burnout, and let's be honest, you can't hold on to top-end fitness for an entire cross season. And this is why it's really important to have some B and C priority races mixed in throughout the season. Number three, and I'm about to talk about it again, the heat. This weekend wasn't quite as hot at Go Cross a few weeks earlier, so the decision to run a bottle wasn't as clear cut. I saw a lot of people not running bottles, but I, however, decided to play it safe and ran a bottle both days, filled with ice cold Flow Formula's lemon lime caffeinated. And both days I ended up drinking the entire bottle, which meant it was probably a good decision. Dehydration and overheating are detrimental to overall race performance. So I was confident in my decision. I'm back in Kentucky this week, and after missing about 2 weeks of training, I've decided to focus a bit more on my training this week. With this being said, I've decided to not race Friday's C2 at Trek. This also means that I'll get to stay at home with CJ and the kid a few extra days before being on a 10-day trip to hit all of the US-based World Cups. I'm confident in this decision, and I'm excited to race over the next week, hopefully with a bit more fitness.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
That's all I've got for this video. If you want to see more videos like it, please hit that subscribe button and share with any of your friends. And if you're looking for a cycling coach, be sure to check out the Ignition Coach Co website. The link is in the description. And until next time, y'all stay rad.